Welcome to lesson 9-8. Tonight we're going to be talking about tenths and hundredths using fractions and decimals.
Equivalent fractions, fractions and decimals, hundredths. In this lesson, you will learn that fractions can be shown in decimal form. How? You will convert decimals to fractions and fractions to decimals to the hundredths place. You know that fractions can be shown as part of a whole or part of a set and represent a value between 0 and 1. Each one of these fraction models shows the fraction 1/4. You also know that when you see the value 2.7, the 2 represents how many ones there are, or how many wholes there are when you're talking about a fraction. And the digit to the right of the decimal point stands for part of the whole, or tenths. Did you hear how I said that? Tenths. It sounds just like when we're talking about fractions. You know that this is how it would look on a number line. We have 2 ones, or 2 complete wholes, 1, 2. And then 7 of the 10 equal parts are shaded in of the next whole. Sometimes values continue on after the tenths place in a decimal. That's what we're going to talk about next. For this example, in the value 2.74, or 2 74 hundredths, we would add another place value of hundredths. Since the digits to the right of the decimal point stand for part of the whole, when we say hundredths, it's like splitting up that whole into 100 equal parts. Knowing this will help us write a number in a fraction. Let's look at the decimal 0.82, or 82 hundredths. Did you hear how that sounded like a fraction? I bet just by hearing that, you would know how to write the fraction. Since there is no number to the left of the decimal point, we do not have a complete whole. So, this decimal represents part of a whole, just like a fraction. If you had a number line split into 100 parts, 82 sections would be shaded in. 82 would be our numerator in the fraction, since that's the part that would be shaded, and 100 would be our denominator, the total number of parts. Let's see how this works another way. Here we have the fraction 29 hundredths. You know that fractions can be shown in decimal form, and you know about place value, so you can turn this fraction into a decimal. There are no complete wholes or ones in our fraction 29 hundredths. We know this because our numerator 29 is less than our denominator 100, so we can put a 0 in the ones place, and then we'd follow that with a decimal point. Then we would put the 2 to show how many tenths we have, and the number 9 to show how many hundredths there are. So our decimal point for the fraction 29 hundredths would be 0.29. In this lesson, you learned that fractions can be shown in decimal form by converting from one form to the other.
Let's take a look at a few more examples. I have 23 hundredths. What would my fraction look like? 23 over 100. 5 tenths. What would my fraction look like? 5 over 10. 5 tenths. 62 hundredths. I'll give you just a second to think about what that would look like. If you pictured 62 over 100 for 62 hundredths, you were correct. 3 tenths. 3 over 10. 3/10. Now let's look at this one. This number, 7 and 4/10. I hear whole number 7. That's going to be my big mixed number. Big number 7, 4/10. 7 and 4/10. How would this one look? 89 and 24/100. It would be a mixed number again. A big 89. 24 over 100. 24/100. How would I convert a fraction into a decimal? 2/10. 0.2. 2/10. 71/100. 0.71. 71/100. 8/100. 0.8. Wait, that's not right. What decimal did I just write down? I just wrote down 8/10. It needs to be 8/100. There, now I am correct. 3/25. Now hold on a second. There is not a 10 or a 100 at the bottom of that fraction. What I first need to do is I need to make this an equivalent fraction with a 100 at the bottom. So how did I get from 25 to 100? I multiplied by 4. So 3 times 4 is 12. Now I have 12/100. 12/100 should look like that. 9/20. What do I need to do? I first need to find an equivalent fraction with a 100 at the bottom. 20 times what is 100? 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. 20 times 5 is 100. So 9 times 5 is 45. Now I can write down my decimal. 45/100 would look like that. You're in luck tonight. There are no notes. Have a great night, and we will see you tomorrow.